I'm offering you the house, Tiffany, and I'll keep the condo. Chandler's voice was as cold and flat as a frozen lake as he slid the first folder across the beige conference table. I couldn't help but let out a sharp, triumphant laugh, the sound echoing off the sterile walls of the mediation office. I looked at him, feeling a rush of smug satisfaction that made my skin tingle. Wow, you really loved me, didn't you? You're actually giving me the house. I leaned back in my chair, my heart racing with the thrill of victory. I thought I had won. I thought my secrets were buried so deep under the floorboards of our 7-year marriage that they would never see the light of day. But then Chandler reached into his black leather briefcase. His expression shifted, not into sadness or defeat, but into a cold, lethal focus that I had never seen in him before. He pulled out a second folder, 3 times thicker than the first. The heavy thud it made on the table sounded like a gavel. "You're right," he whispered, his eyes locking onto mine like a predator. "I did love you. Past tense." He slid the heavy folder toward me, and as my trembling fingers opened the first page, my breath hitched. There it was, a high-resolution, crystal-clear photo of me in the back of Bryce's SUV, my pale pink silk camisole glowing under the harsh glare of a private investigator's flash. The game was over before I even realized the board was rigged. Anyway, make sure to hit that like button if you enjoy my stories, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here. What I just showed you was the brutal end, but let me tell you how it all began. Sometimes the universe has a sick sense of humor about timing. I'm Tiffany, 33 years old, and 7 years of marriage to Chandler taught me that the man never understood what I actually needed. He was 36, worked constantly, and had this obsessive need to control every aspect of our life. Always asking where I was going, who I was with. I was a teenager with a curfew instead of a wife. 2 years ago, I quit my job to find myself, but he just became a financial warden. When your husband treats you like a roommate, you look for a man who treats you like a woman. I'm not proud, but I deserve to feel wanted. David, Reagan, Bryce, and Harlow. They saw the woman Chandler ignored. I remember meeting David at that gallery. I was wearing a black silk camisole that Chandler hated. David didn't hate it. He whispered that I looked like a living sculpture. I remember one humid evening when Chandler was stuck at the office. I invited Harlow over. I changed into a crimson satin slip, the kind with the lace trim that feels like a cold whisper against your thighs. When he saw me, the air in the room got thick. He didn't ask about the mortgage. He just pulled me close, his hands sliding over the smooth, glossy surface of the satin slip, feeling the heat of my skin underneath. The thin straps of the silk camisole felt like they would snap under his grip. For the first time in years, I felt desired. But the most heart-stopping moment happened with Reagan at the Grand Heights Hotel. We were in a corner suite, and I was wearing my red satin slip when Chandler FaceTime called me. "Shit, Reagan, hide," I hissed. I threw on a robe and answered, leaning against a blank wall. "Why is the GPS showing you at a hotel?" Chandler's voice was like a razor. I lied, claiming I was at a day spa. Reagan was literally hiding under the duvet. The adrenaline of that lie made the rest of the afternoon feel like a fever dream. The final straw was that night with Bryce in his SUV. We were in the riverfront lot, the windows opaque with steam. Under my coat, I was wearing a pale pink silk camisole and lace. Suddenly, a blinding spotlight cut through the fogged glass. A security patrol car. Bryce pushed me into the footwell, my face pressed against the cold floor mat, the silk of my camisole rustling loudly. I thought we were safe when the light moved on. I didn't know that another set of eyes, a 4K camera lens from a private investigator hired by my boring husband, had captured everything from a distance. Walking into that mediation room, I felt confident. I deserved the house and spousal support. But when Chandler sliding that second folder, my confidence shattered. "This is invasion of privacy," I stammered. "Actually," Chandler said, "it's completely legal." No expectation of privacy in public places or hotel parking lots. I slammed the folder shut and stormed out. The week that followed was absolute chaos. I called Chandler 36 times. No answer. My lawyer told me the PI report was legal and it killed my spousal support. I tried to play dirty. I called his parents, crying, telling them he was an abusive stalker. His mother cried, "Tell me this isn't true." But even my friends started asking questions. Reagan called me. 4 guys in 2 years, Tiffany? And you're the victim? I escalated. I told my family he was hiding money. My mother showed up at his apartment, pounding on the door until her knuckles bled. "How dare you humiliate my daughter?" Chandler just looked at her. "I haven't humiliated anyone. She destroyed her own reputation." When that didn't work, I filed an emergency motion claiming financial abuse. I said he cut me off and I couldn't afford necessities. But Chandler's lawyer showed my bank statements. He had been depositing $1,200 a month for my allowance, and I had an $8,000 balance while spending $300 at a time on hotels for my affairs. The judge was disgusted. Motion denied. Outside the courthouse, I cornered him. "You're really going to destroy me over some mistakes?" 4 affairs aren't mistakes, Tiffany. Get a hobby, not 4 boyfriends. The final negotiations were a nightmare. I got 35% of the house proceeds and only $800 a month for 1 year. 1 year, after all my sacrifices. On the day we signed the final papers, I couldn't help myself. Those men understood me in ways you never could. Chandler looked at me. "You're right. They understood exactly what you are. Someone who uses people. They didn't care because they weren't married to you. They were just having fun with someone else's wife. I thought you had integrity. I was wrong." He's already happier. He's dating Isabella, a tax attorney who actually respects him. The house sold fast, and my 35% came out to $60,000. I thought I was smart. I rented an expensive apartment and bought a new wardrobe. I even invested $5,000 in an essential oils business that turned out to be a pyramid scheme. Now, 6 months later, I work retail at a department store, making $32,000 a year. My mother helps with rent because I burned through my money. And those 4 men? David stopped returning my calls. Reagan blocked me. Bryce wasn't looking for anything serious. And Harlow? He was back with his ex before I even moved. They wanted the married woman with someone else paying the bills, not the divorced woman who needs actual help. I tried reaching out to Chandler once, a text from a new number to say I was sorry. He just blocked the number. Sitting in my tiny apartment, I can see how everything went wrong. Chandler got his revenge with his evidence and his legal victory. He played the wronged husband while I got painted as the cheating wife. Fine. Let him have his perfect life with Isabella. The thing is, I'm harder now. Chandler taught me that the man you marry can become a stranger overnight when it serves his purposes. Maybe I made mistakes, but I'll never believe his revenge was proportional. He tried to destroy me, and he succeeded. Without his foundation, I'm just another woman living paycheck to paycheck. But I'm surviving. And maybe someday I'll find someone who appreciates me without needing a private investigator. Or maybe I won't. Either way, it's over. 7 years of marriage reduced to legal documents and bitter memories. And despite everything, the public humiliation and the evidence, I still don't think I deserved this. But it's the only truth I have left.